As Lama Babu Sherpa set out for his final push on Everest, there were two things he didn't know. First, that in a few hours he would save the life of a dying Chinese climber at 8,000 meters. And second, that his own body would be left forever in the snow, all for a cryptocurrency publicity stunt. A three-time Everest summiteer, a survivor of the 2015 earthquake, vanishes into the white void of the South Pole. Days later, his client would call him an unprofessional porter, live on air. But the international press uncovered a truth that would turn the entire story on its head. So, what really happened that night at 8,000 meters? And who was the real hero here? And who was the traitor? Imagine hoisting 2 full gas cylinders onto your shoulders, strapping on a backpack filled with rocks, and trying to climb the stairs to the 100th floor, all while breathing through a thin cocktail straw. For any normal person, that's a guaranteed blackout in 10 minutes. For Lama Babu, it was just another day at the office, high in the thin air. We're used to seeing mountaineering as a heroic sport, but for a man born in 1973 in the remote Nepalese village of Kurima, the mountains aren't about romance. They're the only way to survive. Lama grew up in the Solukhumbu region, where the horizon is always dominated by white giants that block out half the sky. He belongs to the Sherpa people. And right here, we need to clear up a popular misconception. Sherpa is not a job title, it's an ethnic group. These are a people whose physiology has been shaped by altitude over centuries. His body works differently than yours or mine. At a cellular level, his body knows how to squeeze energy out of air that has a third less oxygen than normal. Where a European athlete would start to suffocate and lose mental clarity, Lama just keeps walking. But this genetic superpower doesn't make his life easy. On the contrary, it seals his fate, to be a beast of burden for those who want to buy themselves a piece of glory. Lama starts at the very bottom of the Himalayan business food chain. He becomes a porter. Picture a line of people trekking along rocky trails. The tourists carry light day packs with just a water bottle and a jacket. Lama, meanwhile, is carrying their massive duffel bags. The load often reaches 30, sometimes even 40 kilograms. He carries it on his back, often using a head strap that takes the full weight, pressing his neck down into his shoulders. It's a brutal form of natural selection. The weak simply don't last here. They go back down to the valleys to farm. Lama stays. Year after year, he proves his endurance is limitless. He doesn't break under the weight, doesn't complain about the cold, and always gets to camp first to set up tents for the clients who will arrive an hour later. It's this reliability that opens the door to the big leagues. He gets noticed by 7 Summit Treks, the largest company organizing expeditions. This is a turning point. From a simple porter, whose name no one remembers, he becomes a candidate for the elite. The year is 2004. Lama Babu makes his first ascent of Everest. He stands on top of the world, at 8,848 meters. In that moment, he stops being just a porter. Now, he is a climbing Sherpa, a high-altitude guide. This is a completely different status, and completely different money. Now, he doesn't just haul gear to base camp. He's responsible for clients' lives in a zone where life is biologically impossible. He's been given a pass into a world where one season's earnings are more than his village sees in several years. He's willing to take the risk because for a guy from Kurima, it's the only way to provide a decent future for his family. By 2018, his resume reads like a map of the most dangerous places on the planet. In professional mountaineering, there's an unwritten rule. You're only as good as the number of peaks you've summited and returned from, and Lama Babu is worth a lot. He already has 3 8,000ers under his belt, peaks that punch through the ceiling of the stratosphere. First on the list is Manaslu, 8,163 meters. Among climbers, this mountain has a dark reputation. They call it the Killer Mountain because of its monstrous avalanche risk. The slopes there are so unstable that a single wrong step can send thousands of tons of snow crashing down. Lama nails the route cleanly. Next, he takes on Cho Oyu, the world's 6th highest point. He works where the air is so thin that the brain starts to shut down without supplemental oxygen. But being tough isn't enough. To be considered elite, you need technique. Lama proves it on Ama Dablam. It's not an 8,000er only, 6,812 meters, but this mountain is a true nightmare for a novice. It's a vertical tooth of ice and granite that you can't just walk up. Here, you have to hang from ropes over a chasm. Drive your crampons into sheer walls and work your ice axe. LAMA climbs it twice. This confirms it. He's not just a porter, he's a technically skilled professional who knows how to tie knots with one hand in the dark and the wind. However, his real test comes not on a summit, but down below, in the heart of a catastrophe. April 2015. LAMA is on the slopes of Everest. At that moment, Nepal is rocked by a massive earthquake. The ground literally vanishes from under their feet. Giant masses of ice break off from neighboring peaks. An avalanche buries base camp, turning the tent city into a mangled mess of snow in seconds. That day, the mountain claims dozens of lives. LAMA is right there, in the middle of this chaos. He doesn't just survive. When the dust settles, he doesn't run down. He joins the evacuation, helping confused and injured people escape the icy trap. Anyone else, after an experience like that, would hang up their boots for good and stay home. But LAMA is cut from a different cloth. Just 2 years later, in 2017, he returns to the mountain. This time, he approaches from the north, from the Tibetan side. It's a route for the strong-willed. It's colder, windier, and help is much farther away. He stands on top of the world again, logging his second successful Everest ascent. In the small circle of guides and expedition leaders, his name is spoken with respect. His colleagues at 7 Summit Treks describe him as a renowned Sherpa. This is the top tier. By the spring of 2018, he's in peak condition. He knows these mountains, he has survived their fury, and he is confident in his abilities. He seems invincible, and it's this very confidence that makes him the perfect candidate for the next, very strange mission. People usually climb Everest for a dream, but in the spring of 2018, they were climbing for headlines. Base camp becomes the stage for the strangest deal of the season. An expedition arrives that looks less like a sports team and more like a field office for a tech startup. They have a budget, ambition, and a clear business plan. The main sponsor is a company launching a new digital product. They want more than just online ads. They need a news event of planetary scale. The idea sounds bold and modern, to physically carry a capsule with cryptocurrency to the summit of the world, to declare the reliability and height of their technology. Carry crypto to the roof of the world is the slogan. For marketers in warm offices, it's a stroke of genius. For the people in down suits, it's an order that has to be carried out. The client roster is chosen to match the ambition. It's a Ukrainian team, Taras Pozny, Roman Horodechny, Dmitry Semerenko, and Irina Galay. They're charged up for success, media savvy, and ready to be the face of this campaign. But behind every successful client photo, there's someone doing all the dirty work. The logistics are handled by the giant 7 Summit Treks. The managers understand. When a sponsor's reputation and big money are on the line, there can be no mistakes. They need a human guarantee, someone who doesn't ask unnecessary questions about the point of the stunt, but just gets the job done. The choice falls on LAMA BABU. He's assigned to the support group. His contract says nothing about a heroic conquest. His role is purely functional. He's the insurance policy, the Sherpa who will carry the spare oxygen cylinders. Oxygen at this altitude is a currency more valuable than gold. The clients climb light to save energy for the final push and the perfect photos. LAMA, however, loads his pack to the brim. He remains in the shadow of this flashy PR campaign. While the clients are discussing the best camera angles for their summit videos, LAMA is checking regulators and packing gear. For him, this expedition is no different from the previous ones. The mountain is the same, the cold is the same. Only now the cargo has a strange, intangible value. He has to help people carry something to the top that you can't touch, but that's worth a lot of money. No one on the team yet suspects that this contrast, between virtual ambitions and a very real wall of ice, will prove to be fatal. May 14th, 2018. Camp 4 on the South Col. Altitude, 7,900 meters. This place is called the antechamber to space, and it marks the end of the zone where the human body can recover. The summit team is preparing to set out into the night. All the preparation, all the big words in press releases and arguments over budgets are left far below. Here, there is only the crunch of snow, the beam of headlamps, and the hiss of oxygen masks. The weather gives the team a gift. The sky is clear, the wind moderate. For Everest, this is a rare stroke of luck, almost an invitation. It feels as if the mountain is asleep, letting its guests pass without inspection. Lama Babu takes his place in the line. Right now, he's not just a porter, he's a safety guarantor. While the clients psych themselves up for their feet, Lama is checking the pressure in the cylinders and the condition of the regulators. His movements are economical and precise. He controls the pace, not letting the group burn through their energy too quickly, but also not letting them freeze in place. He is the metronome of this expedition, setting the rhythm of their steps in the thin air. The ascent goes according to plan. Step, breathe, step, breathe. After hours of grueling work in the dark, the group reaches the ridge, and there it is, the roof of the world, 8,848 meters. The group stands on the summit. For the clients, it's a moment of triumph, the peak of their entire lives, something they've trained months for. For Lama Babu, it's a familiar stop on the route. He was here in 2004, and again in 2017. He knows that euphoria, at this very moment, is the most dangerous enemy, but now it's showtime. The main part of the mission begins. Out come the sponsor flags. The cameras capture the success. The participants do what this whole thing was for. They pull out a capsule holding cryptocurrency. In the snow, at the highest point on the planet, they bury a device holding tens of thousands of dollars. It looks surreal, people in heavy suits hiding a piece of plastic and metal where it's absolutely useless. From a marketing standpoint, it's a clear win. The photos are taken, the treasure is hidden, the report for the investors is going to be stellar. The job is 100% done. People hug, congratulating each other through their masks. It seems like the hardest part is over, but Lama Babu knows the old mountaineering truth. The summit is only halfway, and more often than not, it's the easier half. The team turns around to start the descent, confident that the weather is on their side. They don't know yet that the perfect sky above their heads is already starting to change color. The mountain doesn't even give them 5 minutes to celebrate. As soon as the climbers turn their backs to the summit, the perfect weather collapses, as if someone just flipped a switch in a room. It's not gradual, it's instant. The wind, which just a minute ago was only rustling the flags, turns into a roaring torrent of icy air. Visibility drops to 0. Lama Babu is trapped. His gear, so reliable on the way up, starts working against him. Due to the temperature drop and his heavy breathing, the condensation inside his oxygen mask and goggles turns into a crust of ice. All he can see is a blurry pane of glass. To continue like this is impossible. One wrong step on the ridge means a fall into the abyss. He needs to see the safety rope, the very handrail that leads down to life. He faces a brutal choice: go on blind, risking a fall, or take off his goggles to see the path. He chooses the second. Lama pushes the goggles up onto his forehead. This decision, dictated by the need to survive right now, triggers an irreversible process of destruction. At an altitude of 8,700 meters, the atmosphere is so thin it barely blocks any ultraviolet radiation. The sun here acts like a welding torch. The snow underfoot acts like a mirror, reflecting almost 100% of the rays right into his face. The human eye isn't built for this kind of assault. The cornea gets burned in a matter of minutes. It's called snow blindness. At first, Lama feels a slight burning, as if sand got in his eyes. He blinks, trying to clear his vision, but the tears freeze instantly on his eyelashes, gluing his eyelids together. The sand turns into broken glass. The world begins to blur. The outlines of the rocks and the backs of his clients lose their definition, turning into smudges. His pace drops catastrophically. From a confident leader setting the rhythm, he turns into a man searching for a foothold with every step. His coordination fails him. The brain gets distorted signals from the eyes and can't properly control his legs. Lama starts to stumble. Now, his only connection to reality is the taut rope in his hand. He clings to it like a last hope, trying to feel his way forward. The group continues its descent through the storm, but one of its main engines has already started to fail. Lama is still moving, but his world is rapidly plunging into a painful, blindingly white darkness. On Everest, there's a terrifying arithmetic. In the death zone, every extra minute drastically reduces your chances of survival. But at 8,500 meters, the group stumbles upon an obstacle that can't simply be bypassed. It's not a rock or a crevasse. It's a person. Curled up in the fetal position right on the trail lies a Chinese climber. His name is Saber Liu. He isn't moving, and at first, it seems he's just another tragic route marker, part of the icy landscape. But he's breathing. Then, a detail emerges that surprises even the seasoned guides. His own team had left him behind. Saber had run out of oxygen, was completely exhausted, and his partners made the pragmatic decision to move on, writing him off. He's been left to die in a place where the temperature drops to minus 30 degrees, and the air is too thin to sustain life. In that moment, Lama Babu and his clients face a choice. The logic of survival dictates only one thing: step over him and continue the descent. Their own strength is fading, the storm is getting worse, and Lama can barely see a thing because of his burned eyes. Every second of delay steals from their own chances of making it back. But they stop. Instead of saving themselves, the team begins a rescue operation. It's hard labor. At this altitude, lifting a person lying down is like trying to move a concrete slab. The Sherpas pull out their own supplies. They share the most valuable thing they have: oxygen. They hook Saber up to a tank, trying to bring him back to reality. Lama Babu, even as the world blurs into a white smudge before him, takes part in the evacuation. He burns precious calories and the last of his energy to drag a stranger down the slope. They literally haul him through the snow, meter by meter, fighting the wind and gravity. This isn't some heroic movie with a fast-paced soundtrack. It's a slow, grueling struggle. They manage to get the Chinese climber further down, where another group heading up can take over. Saber Liu will live. He is saved. But this noble act has a price, one that must be paid immediately. The time spent saving another's life was borrowed against Lama's own fate. That 1 or 2 hour delay becomes fatal. The window of opportunity slams shut. While they were dealing with the stranded climber, the storm completely engulfed the mountain, and Lama Babu's own reserves dropped to a critical level. He gave his chance for a quick descent to a man he had seen for the first and last time in his life. Heroism in a zone where the air is barely breathable lasts exactly as long as you yourself don't run out of air. As soon as the rescue is complete, the group's collective mind switches off, and the ancient instinct for self-preservation kicks in. All that's left is cold calculation. Oxygen is running low, the storm is intensifying, and it's still a long way to the tents. The invisible thread binding them together as a single organism snaps with a deafening crack. The clients realize that every minute in the wind brings them closer to hypothermia. They speed up. They have an advantage Lama doesn't. They can see where to place their feet. They push on downward, toward the safety of Camp 4, their headlamps cutting through the blizzard. The gap between them and Lama begins to grow, first 10 meters, then 50. In a whiteout, 50 meters is another planet. Lama Babu tries to keep pace, but without his sight, he can't anticipate the terrain. Where the clients leap over a crevasse, he has to probe the way with his boot. He stumbles, wasting energy just to stay upright. And with each misstep, he falls further and further behind. And that's when something strange and terrible happens. A breach of protocol. His partner, Mingma Sherpa, is supposed to be with him. In commercial climbing, it's a law written with lives. No one walks alone. Guide and assistant, client and Sherpa. They are links in a single chain. But in the chaos of the storm, that chain shatters. Mingma gets separated too. Maybe he thinks Lama is right behind him. Maybe he pushes ahead to prepare tea and sleeping bags for the clients. There are no exact details, only the fact. Mingma vanishes into the blizzard somewhere ahead, or below. Visual contact is lost for good. The backs of his companions disappear into the milky fog. The sounds of their steps and the clanking of carabiners, which had served as some kind of guide, fade away. Now, Lama can only hear the howl of the wind whipping against his hood. Now, he is alone. This is the most terrifying scenario for any climber. You are in a place called the death zone, not because it's a poetic turn of phrase, but because here, the body's cells die faster than they can regenerate. You have no eyes to see the path. You have no shoulder to lean on. And most importantly, the people you were guiding and protecting on their way to the summit are already far below, in the warmth, certain that you are right behind them, but you are not. You are standing in the middle of a frozen hell, and the thread leading back to life has slipped from your hands. The most chilling moment for a climber is when the rhythmic hissing behind your back suddenly stops. In that instant, Lama Babu takes a breath, but the air doesn't come. The regulator goes silent. The tank is empty. It sounds like a death sentence, but at this altitude, it's more like a switch being flipped. Without a supply of artificial oxygen, his body, already exhausted from the fight against wind and cold, instantly loses what little energy it has left. It's like a diver's air supply being cut off deep underwater. Lama stops. He hasn't reached the life-saving yellow dots of Camp 4. He is stuck below the summit, in the area known as the balcony, an exposed platform on the ridge, scoured by all the winds of the universe. The tents, with their warm tea and sleeping bags, are maybe just an hour's walk for a healthy person. But for a blind and suffocating Lama, that distance becomes infinite. He simply doesn't know which way to go. There are no landmarks around him, only a roaring darkness. Night falls on the mountain. The temperature drops below -30 degrees, but the numbers on a thermometer don't convey the reality. Factoring in the storm force wind, which cuts through any down jacket, the cold feels like a physical blow. A person who isn't moving turns into a statue of ice with terrifying speed. Lama's body enters emergency mode. To preserve heat for the heart and brain, the body shuts down the periphery. Fingers and toes are the first to go numb. Then the cold seeps deeper. The most terrifying part of this situation is the complete isolation. He has a radio on his chest, but the radio is silent. Either the battery died in the cold, or he simply can't press the button with his frozen hands. No one can hear his breathing. No one knows his coordinates. He is on one of the most popular mountains on the planet, yet he is as alone as an astronaut who has become untethered from their station in the vacuum of space. As the cold sets in, the brain starts to starve for oxygen. Your thoughts start to unravel. Reality begins to blur at the edges. In this state, climbers often lose all sense of where they are, or what's even happening. Fear melts away, replaced by a strange, deceptive sense of calm. He might think he's already home, warm and safe, or that his tent is right in front of him, just an arm's length away. But there's nothing in front of him but emptiness and a swirling vortex of snow. Lama Babu is facing the night with no shelter and no help. The morning of May 15th brings a silence more terrifying than any storm. The wind that had tormented the mountain all night suddenly dies, and a perfectly clear sun rises over the South Col. The visibility is so good you can make out individual rocks on the neighboring peaks. But this idyllic picture is a lie. Down in Camp 4, amidst the yellow tents, panic is setting in. People are waking up, shaking the frost from their sleeping bags and starting a head count. The clients are here. They're exhausted, dehydrated, but alive. Most of the support team is accounted for as well. Someone is already melting snow for tea. And then a detail emerges that makes everyone's blood run cold. Lama Babu is gone. He's not in any of the tents. No one saw him enter the camp. His backpack isn't by any entrance. They start asking around, and a frightening truth comes to light. No one remembers when he disappeared. Hypoxia and exhaustion had wiped their memories clean, like an eraser on a pencil drawing. One person says they saw him near the balcony. Another is sure Lama was walking right behind him. A third can't recall when they last saw him at all. It was as if a man had simply vanished from their reality and no one had even noticed. Their accounts are a mess, and piecing together a timeline is impossible. Rescuers and guides from other teams pull out their binoculars. Now that the blizzard has passed, the slope of Everest is laid out before them like a map. They slowly scan the route, meter by meter, their gaze traveling up from the camp towards the summit. They're looking for any spot of color that isn't snow or rock. They're looking for movement, the wave of a hand, an attempt to stand up, anything. But the slope is empty. There are no black dots on the white canvas, just a static, lifeless picture. They can't wait any longer. A search party leaves the camp. It's made up of Sherpas from other expeditions, strong guys who, despite their own fatigue, strap on their crampons and head back up. They know that if Lama spent the night without a tent, they are not counting in hours, but in minutes. They follow the tracks of yesterday's drama, hoping to find their colleague alive, but with every step upward, that hope melts away like the morning snow. What the search party finds raises more questions than it answers. There's no body on the slope, but there are clues that tell the terrifying story of his last night. First, the Sherpas spot a bright patch against the white snow. It's his backpack. It's just lying there, as if its owner simply stepped away for a moment and would be right back. Nearby, some of his gear is scattered, a climbing harness, carabiners, personal items. And in the middle of this still life, a small plastic box is blinking. It's a Spot GPS tracker. The device is working perfectly, sending a signal with its exact coordinates to the satellites. I am here. The battery still has a charge. The electronics survived the frost. But the person who was supposed to press the all clear button is nowhere to be found. The Sherpas get closer and see a detail that sends a chill down the spines of even Everest veterans. A little way off from the backpack, there are a pair of boots. They didn't fly off in a fall. They've been neatly taken off and left behind. For a climber, taking off high-altitude boots at 8,000 meters is like an astronaut taking off their helmet in the vacuum of space. It's an act incompatible with life. The boots are the only thing protecting your feet from instant frostbite, and the only thing keeping you anchored to the vertical ice. To take them off in your right mind is impossible. Here, the rescuers are faced with a terrifying phenomenon of human physiology. When the body freezes to its absolute limit, the internal thermostat simply breaks. The brain, tormented by hypoxia and cold, malfunctions. Instead of sending a signal saying, "I'm cold," it suddenly sends a powerful surge of heat. The person feels unbearably hot. In the final stages of hypothermia, people often rip off their jackets, hats, and gloves, trying to cool down. It seems Lama Babu, lost in the darkness and blinded by the snow, fell victim to this illusion. He probably sat down in the snow, unlaced his heavy boots, and took them off, feeling a false sense of relief. But the physics of the mountain are relentless. Left in just his socks on an icy 40-degree slope, a person loses all traction. The crampons, the metal spikes, were still attached to the boots. Without them, it's impossible to hold on to the hard-packed snow. The scenario pieces itself together. Disoriented, perhaps trying to stand up or just shift his position, he slips. One clumsy move and he plummets down the east face, disappearing over the edge of the slope. The boots and the blinking tracker remain behind, a monument to a tragic error of a mind deceived by the cold. His body is nowhere to be found. The slope below the discovery site drops away vertically, hiding any trace of his fall. Everest knows how to keep secrets better than any bank, and this time, it has decided not to return what it has taken. The search party calls it off. The rescuers, having combed every accessible meter of the slope, are forced to admit defeat. They descend, leaving behind an empty white expanse and a pair of lonely boots that will soon be covered by fresh snow. The official documents contain a dry, bureaucratic phrase, "Body not recovered." In the world of mountaineering, this isn't just a lack of evidence. It's a special status. It means Lama Babu has become part of the landscape, an eternal guardian of the route whom no one will ever see again. To the mountain, he is now just another feature of the terrain, but for the world of the living, a bureaucratic conclusion is required. In Kathmandu, officials and company representatives fill out the paperwork. His status is changed to presumed dead. The date of death is recorded as May 2018. In the cause section, they don't write about the drama or the heroic rescue of the Chinese climber. Instead, there's a cold medical diagnosis, a combination of factors. Snow blindness made it impossible for him to move. Exhaustion shut down his muscles, and hypothermia stopped his heart. A man simply sits down to rest and never gets up again. This news travels down from 8,000 meters to the green valleys of Nepal, where the air is thick and warm. In the village of Kurima, his family receives not a body for traditional funeral rites, but a notification. For his wife and loved ones, this is the hardest outcome. There is no grave to visit, no chance to see his face one last time. There is only emptiness and the knowledge that their provider remains somewhere up there, in the sky, in the zone of eternal cold. Lama Babu wasn't the only one who didn't come home that spring. The 2018 season proves to be a cruel one for the local community. The statistics deliver their grim total. Lama becomes one of 5 Sherpas who died that year on the slopes of Everest. While the world celebrates new records and successful client summits, the professional community of guides silently counts its losses. 5 empty seats at tables in 5 different homes. This is the price the Sherpa people pay so that others can stand for 5 minutes on top of the world and take a beautiful photo. Lama's story might have become just another line in these sad statistics, if not for what happened immediately after the tragedy. The silence surrounding his name turns into a loud scandal. Having barely descended from the heights into the warm, dusty city of Kathmandu, Dmitry Semerenko faces the journalists. He's alive, he's a hero in the news, and he is angry. In a conference room, free from wind and frost, the client begins to speak. But instead of a story of tragedy, what comes out is a harsh complaint about the quality of service. Semerenko doesn't mince words. He describes the support team's work with words that hit the reputation of the entire industry harder than an ice axe. In his version of events, the Sherpas were not rescuers or climbing partners. They were unqualified personnel who failed at their job. Then comes the line that instantly flies across headlines. They looked like porters, not guides. In the world of high-altitude mountaineering, this is a grave insult. That's like telling an airline pilot they fly like a rookie cab driver. Dmitry claims that the 7 Summit Treks team was completely incompetent. He places special emphasis on communication. According to the client, there was a solid wall of misunderstanding between him and Lama Babu. Semerenko states that his guide knew absolutely no English, no commands, no dialogue, just the silent presence of a person with whom it was impossible to communicate. This paints a picture of Lama as a random passenger on this expedition, someone who was there by mistake. But the most serious accusation concerns the moment they separated. The client's version flips the entire picture upside down. Semerenko says it wasn't the group that went ahead, but Lama Babu who abandoned them. He just fell behind, he says in the interview. Dmitry's words are laced with resentment. They paid for a guide, and at the critical moment, they were left alone. He describes the situation as if a hired employee simply stopped doing his job in the middle of the workday. These statements hit the airwaves while Lama's body hasn't even been covered by snow up on the mountain. There has been no investigation yet, no interviews with other witnesses. No one in that room knows about the snow blindness, the broken goggles, or how this incompetent porter had spent his last ounces of strength saving a Chinese climber just hours before. The client's words land on fertile ground. The public loves a scandal, and the story of bad service on Everest sells perfectly. Semerenko speaks with confidence. He's the victim who survived against all odds. His truth becomes the primary version of events. For a few days, the world is convinced that the deceased Sherpa was to blame for his own fate, that he was an unprofessional who let his clients down. But there are people who can't stay silent. They are the ones who have walked these same routes, who know the price of every step at 8,000 meters, and who understand what happens to a person in a storm at that altitude. To them, Semerenko's words are a slap in the face to the entire profession. First to respond is Outside Magazine. This isn't some tabloid. It's a reputable publication that's been covering the world of extreme sports for decades. Their reporters dig into the archives, make calls to Kathmandu, and get in touch with 7 Summit Treks to get the real story. A few days later, they publish a piece with a bombshell headline that completely flips the narrative. The article lays out the facts that Semerenko had, for some reason, forgotten to mention. Lama Babu had summited Everest 3 times. 3 times? He'd climbed Manaslu, Cho Oyu, Annapurna. These aren't just stats on a resume. This is years of working in an environment where one mistake can cost you your life. Calling a man like that a porter is like calling a surgeon with 20 years of experience an orderly. But the reporters don't stop there. They explain to their readers what every guide knows by default. A Sherpa on the route isn't just carrying his own personal backpack. He's hauling spare oxygen canisters for the clients. Each canister weighs about 5 kilograms. When you've got 2 or 3 of those on your back, plus your own gear, you physically can't move at the same speed as a client traveling light. Outside also confirms the story about the Chinese climber. Saber Liu was in fact rescued that night. And it was the group with Lama Babu that stopped to help the dying man. This is a documented fact that changes the entire picture. So while the client is accusing the Sherpa of falling behind, Lama is actually using his last ounces of strength to to pull a total stranger from an icy grave. At the same time, Alan Arnett enters the picture. That name means a lot in the world of high-altitude mountaineering. Arnett has climbed Everest himself. He runs one of the most respected blogs on the Himalayas, and his opinion carries more weight than a dozen newspaper articles. He writes an analysis of the situation, and his piece is a cold shower for anyone who believed the client's version of events. Arnett calls the incident a preventable tragedy. He asks the uncomfortable questions. Why did the group split up? Why did the clients push ahead, leaving their guide behind? Where was the coordination? Why didn't anyone at camp raise the alarm when it became clear a man was missing? His tone is calm, but you can feel the outrage simmering beneath every line. He states it plainly. A guide with that kind of experience doesn't just fail. LAMA's colleagues from 7 Summit Treks provide their own comments. They confirm he was one of their best, reliable, strong, technically skilled. He was chosen for difficult routes precisely because he was trusted. The criticism against Semerenko begins to mount. He's called out not just for his factual errors, but for his ethical blindness. A man died saving someone else's life, and the client he was guiding, the one who survived because of his work, is publicly accusing him of being unprofessional. It feels like a betrayal of his memory. Harsh words start appearing in the comments under the articles. Ingratitude, cynicism, an attempt to shift the blame. Slowly, public opinion begins to turn. LAMA BABU is no longer a faceless line in a news report. He becomes a hero who paid with his life for someone else's marketing stunt and another person's rescue. LAMA BABU's story stops being just a local incident. Dozens of publications around the world pick up the same angle. Sherpa dies during crypto stunt on Everest. The headlines practically write themselves. The contrast is too stark to ignore. On one hand, you have virtual money, a digital code you can't even touch. On the other, a real human body left in the snow at 8,000 meters. Journalists start asking the question that grates on the ear. Why? This wasn't a scientific expedition. It wasn't a rescue operation. It was a marketing stunt, dreamed up in a warm office by people who have never felt the bite of the wind. A new term starts appearing in the articles. Crypto Everest stunt. 3 words that turn a tragedy into a symbol of the commercialization of Everest. The sponsoring company spent tens of thousands of dollars on this expedition, more than LAMA's family earns in a year. And that entire budget was for one thing, to generate a media buzz. The plan worked, just not the way they intended. Instead of glowing articles about technology, the world press is writing about cynicism and the price of a human life. The story becomes part of a larger discussion about the ethics of sponsored climbs. Where is the line between advertising and exploitation? LAMA BABU becomes the face of a problem that was previously only whispered about. But the media wave eventually subsides. The sponsor issues a press release with their condolences. They promise financial support for the family. But there's no public confirmation, no data on whether the family received anything beyond the standard insurance payout of $15,000. In the West, that's the price of a used car. For a family in Kurama, it's several years of survival. The project itself quickly fades away. The capsule is still up there in the snow, but no one cares about it anymore. The ad campaign becomes an awkward memory, and LAMA BABU is reduced to a line in a database. Name, date, cause, snow blindness, body not recovered. His story pops up now and then in articles about the dangers of commercial climbing. But to most, he simply vanished, dissolved into the white of the slopes, left behind where his route ended. There's no monument, just the cold wind over the South Col, and new groups of clients who make the same trek every season, never knowing that someone was left behind here, so that they could keep going.